When it comes to your Enneagram wing, it can only be the number directly to the left or to the right of your primary type. So 9s can either have a 1 wing or an 8 wing. And as I've said in other episodes, there's usually one wing that's more of a natural fit with your core personality traits, and one wing that's a bit more of a contradiction. For 9s, that contradiction is in full force with the Type 8 challenger. 9s with an 8 wing are called the referee, and they are one of the most confusing subtypes within the Enneagram because their core traits are so drastically different. The 9 wing 8 is typically more extroverted, sociable, assertive, and funny with kind of a silly yet sharp sense of humor. 8s are by nature highly energetic and ambitious as they drive towards realistic goals that bring material well-being. So this subtype tends to be more focused on attaining a comfortable home life while also pursuing a more vibrant social life when compared to 9s with a 1 wing. The 8 wing can also kind of exhaust the 9's core traits, and so they could be involved in competitive sports, but once the game is over, they crash hard. Again, this type is full of contradictions, so even though they may be deferential and physically lazy at one moment, the next moment they'll be super competitive and even cocky about their abilities. This also goes for their work life, as they believe that they're a vital part of the team, and yet they don't typically advocate for themselves when it comes to raises or promotions. Now in relationships, 9s with an 8 wing can really confuse their loved ones because they're prone to these intense outbursts of anger, and then all of a sudden they're right back to normal like nothing happened. 8s are both very comfortable with anger and very self-assured, while 9s are great at ignoring problems. So this subtype is an expert when it comes to compartmentalizing their emotions. This also makes them incredibly defensive because they're convinced of their reality, no matter how badly they or other people have behaved. When 9 wing 8s are going through a tough time, they can look a lot like Type 4s because they withdraw from the outside world and can be sort of flat in their expression. You know a 9 with an 8 wing isn't doing well when they suddenly erupt into tearfulness because they've lost even their greatest strength, which is holding back their emotions and impulses. However, even at their lowest, the 8's desire for control mixed with the 9's inability to ask for help makes this subtype incredibly difficult to support. But when they are emotionally stable, 9s with an 8 wing are incredibly accepting, engaging individuals that can balance silliness with stability. Okay, that's the 9 with an 8 wing. Now let's switch over to the 9 with a 1 wing, which is also called the dreamer. 9s and 1s actually have a lot of complementary traits in regard to their ability to suppress emotions like anger, their desire to live in an ideal world, and their tendency to have keen observations about other people and their surroundings. All of this makes 9 wing 1s a lot more introspective and self-controlled than 9s with an 8 wing. It also makes them less concerned with reality because they prefer to live in the world of ideas, symbols, or concepts, hence the nickname, the dreamer. This can make them seem almost naive because they've got this like pie in the sky view of reality. And one of the best traits that dreamers have though is their integrity. They just naturally do the right thing. They were like the model child growing up, and many even looked like Type 3s because they never really broke the rules, and not because they were scared of getting in trouble, they just didn't care to. They're just gentle souls. However, when 9 wing 1s aren't doing great, they can be super critical and very complacent. They tend to just sit back and smolder with resentment as they justify their lack of participation with the outside world on the basis that society is just a broken or unfair system. They can have a sort of what's the point mindset that makes them way less likely to take risks or adventure out into the world. Also, the philosophical nature of 1s keeps 9s from taking practical actions to advance their life or make the changes they wish to see in the world. And instead, they just read another book or take another class or start a new hobby. All of this can make dreamers really endearing because it seems so harmless, but their tendency for self-sabotage has lifelong consequences. Unhealthy 9s with a 1 wing can end up looking like Type 5 investigators because they completely withdraw from mainstream society and begin to cultivate this weird, neurotic world in which they're so isolated that they begin to seem like they're almost on the spectrum. However, when 9s with a 1 wing are healthy and balanced, they can be incredibly wise, gentle, and caring people that would make great therapists and teachers because they have a sort of synthetic mind capable of making all sorts of fascinating connections in order to present a vision of a far better world and a far better you. Okay, those are the wings for the Type 9 Peacemaker. Now, let's dive into their movements of integration and disintegration.